I'm Ellen from VE, and today we're going to continue working on our Japanese Oni. Now, if you missed the first episode, let me just renew or refresh your memory or acquaint you with our Japanese Oni pattern, which can be downloaded at via-e.com. Now, what is a Japanese Oni anyway? Well, it's like an ogre. And it is part of Mako's comic book. And so you can see him right here on the back, he's the bad guy. And so we're going to make us a bad guy. Now, I am going to make this one for Brendan Kimball, who is a VAE superstar. And the reason why he's reached superstar status is for all the sharing he has done about VAE in our community. So I asked him, which one would you like us to make? And he decided that he wanted the one that looks like the one found in the comic book. So here is the stuffed version, and we are going to recreate this guy for Brendan. Now today, we're just going to work on the face. And so I'm going to do videos, small, short videos that kind of take you step by step by step. So if you work with me, you'll have yours done at the same time that Brendan gets his. So let's start with the face. Now, I have done some work in advance, but I also have set up so that I can show you some of the techniques. So if you look here, you can see that I have a face set up for Brendan. Now, how did I put the face together? Let's talk about, I want to put this closer to the camera so you can see the eyebrows, the eyes, and the teeth. Those were applied with glue. So the eyebrows are the same material that his beard's going to be. Okay, so you can see here. So we've got our eyebrows and our beard. So these are the same material. And this one also has, I used fabric glue. Okay. So I used fabric glue to glue them on. Now when you're gluing them on, you have to, well, what I recommend is that you let your glue sit out for a little bit so that it is a little more sticky and less runny. Because if it's too runny, then it seeps through to the other side of the material and it just doesn't look as nice. The option that we did here, if you look real close, of the eyes, those were felt. Okay, so the felt eyes were just cut out of the pattern, and you know, they're little small pieces, as you can see, teeny tiny pieces, and so you only need a scratch piece. You don't have to use felt. You can use, you know, a black jean material, any kind of material you would like to do, or you can embroider them. Here on this version, you can see that I hand embroidered them. Or if you have a machine that you can program, you can machine embroider them. And, you know, I have created 3 of them and I used all the techniques that I'm talking about. And what I like to do is I kind of like to mix the techniques. Now this one, the mouth and the chin and all of this is hand embroidered, and I don't embroider. So if I can do this, you can do this. If you can put a needle and thread together and poke it in and out of fabric, you can do this, okay? What I did, however, on Brendan's is I used the sewing machine to do the furrow lines and the mouth and the chin line. When I turn it around, you're going to see that I used some stay fabric, okay, just to reinforce. So this is just kind of an interfacing that's fusible. And notice that I only cut it out in the places where I was sewing. If you put it on the whole face, which I have done, and I found out that was a mistake, because later when you're stuffing him, it'll make the face so that it's flat. And we don't want that. We want the face to kind of round in with our character. And so that's why you only want to put the interfacing, the fusible interfacing where you're sewing. If you don't put it where you're sewing, what can happen is the fabric can stretch because the fabric's a little bit stretchy. Now, in cutting out your fabric, it's important that you're working with the nap. So this is called minky. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, if you run with the fabric nap, it's really kind of one way. And if you run against it, can you see that? It gets darker and it ruffles up. I don't know how good you're seeing that on the camera. And so when you are cutting out your pieces, you want to make sure that you're lining up the nap so that it's going down, okay? And so when you look at the pattern pieces, this is the one for the face. You can see the arrow, and that's, you want, when you brush your hand over the fabric, that's where you want all the nap to smooth out. If you brush it up, then it's going to get darker and it's going to give kind of that more of a rough look. Now, if that's a look that you're looking for, you can do that. Remember, this is your project, and be as creative as you want to be. I don't believe in living in boxes. And so kind of play with the fabric and see how it looks and find out what your best look is. All right, so we'll go back to the pre-work that we did, and this is all we're doing today. Notice that I have this nose and it's a different color. Yeah, that's because this nose is just a puffball. See? Just a puffball. And so in this case, it's a little bit darker than our fabric, but I think it's kind of cute. But here's another option. We make the nose ourselves out of the same fabric. Now, this is the pattern piece for the nose. All you're doing is folding and sewing the darts. Okay? Leave the top part open, and then you'll put a back on it. Oops, wrong side. And you want to leave this open. So around the back, but leave this open. The reason why you need to do that is so that you can stuff it with stuffing. Okay? And here you can see I've kind of done it in advance. You can see the backs on it, and you can see the nose, and notice that I left it open. Now what I would do is I would whip stitch it. Okay, so whip stitch is when you take the needle in and around and you come back again. The pattern has all the various stitches that you're going to use in illustrations so that you can understand it and put it together. So for Brendan, what we'll do is we will finish up this nose, and then I'm going to stitch it on. So I'll kind of stick it in place and just pin it right now. Okay. And so you can kind of see the difference here. Hopefully I put it in the right place. So right now the nose is still a little bit wide, excuse me, a little bit wide because it's not been stitched on. But it will become more like this one, where you can see he's got his button nose. Now what I like to do is I try to figure out ways that make this super, super easy for you so that you're going to want to do more than one. I found every time that I did it, I had more fun because I could choose a different, different color, a different way of expressing things, okay? So now here's the key. When you're making the face, you need to put all of the elements in the right place. Because it's not like typical sewing marking, I came up with a different idea. As I showed this to you, you can see that I have cut out the various areas that we're going to apply things. And what we're going to do is we're going to dry brush. So this has now become a stencil. And so I have prepared over here a little bit of white, and it's a dry brush. You don't want your brush to have much. See? Hardly any. Okay, I'm going to take some of that off. And then I'm going to brush downward. Okay? I'm going to brush downward so that I go with the nap. Okay? I'm brushing downward on both sides just like a stencil. Now what I like to do is I like to hold the pattern down tight to the fabric so that it won't, go underneath the stencil. And this is going to give me the markings of where I am going to glue the various pieces on. It makes it super, super easy. Now for the teeth, I'm using a white. okay? But for the eyebrows and the eyes, I'm going to use the brown just because I don't want the white, I don't want to have white linings. And so you can see I use kind of a sienna brown because that's about the color of the brown I have. I wouldn't use a really dark brown because my my material is not dark brown. And again, I don't want any of this, I don't want any of this to show up outside of where I am gluing my pieces. Now I'm going to quickly do this. And here's the thing about this, okay? I think this is a great thing for your children to do, to get them involved in the project. Give them a dry brush and have them sit down and just paint the stencil part onto the fabric. And let me see. I'm going to need just a little bit more brown here. Okay. And again, the key is not to put too much on the fabric, because all we're doing is trying to create a marking of where we're going to put our pieces down and then glue them. Okay. Now you can say, well, Ellen, I don't want to glue them. I'm not sure if glue is going to work for me. That's fine. You don't have to do what is best for you. I'm just showing you what kind of has worked for me. I tried a couple different things. I tried marking with a pen, and that worked okay. I kind of did like a rough mark out, and then did that, and then I kind of came up with this idea of dry brushing so that I could get them kind of a little bit more exacting. Now you got to forgive my dry brushing. It's a little bit rushed, not the best, but you can kind of see my marks of my dry brush. Now the thing I didn't mention to you is right here in the furrow lines and on the chin line, I also left it open so that I can use a pencil to draw just very, it's not lightly because you got to kind of really go back and forth, but I use the pencil to go just in those spots so that I can get a marking that I can follow with my sewing machine. Now I'm going to mark those later just so that I can show you our results here really quickly. Okay. And I pull out the stencil and voila! Now I know exactly where to put all of the pieces. And what works really well with the teeth, you can see here, this is just felt. This is felt and these pieces are felt. And with your white felt, it's kind of thin. And so by marking the white in paint first, it helps make sure that you get a really white, bright tooth. Okay, now let me go back to this one. I'm going to remove the nose so we can look a little bit closer. On the furrow lines, right, I used a sewing machine. And if I show you this really, really close, you can see it's just a really tight zigzag. Okay, so the numbers that I used on the zigzag is I actually used kind of more of an embroidery stitch, but if you don't have embroidery stitches on your machine, you can use a zigzag. It's the same thing. And so on my machine, the spacing to bring it together was a 0.08. You may not be able to go that fine, so you can use a 1. The next thing I did is notice that it's a wider stitch across the mouth than it is on the furrow line in the chin. So on the wide stitch, I used a 4, and on the rest of the stitches on the chin and the furrow lines, I used a 2. So when you're looking at your machine, you can kind of say, okay, about half the size, so or twice the size for the mouth than what you use here if you're going to use the machine. Okay, and so that's all we are going to do today. we are going to work on the body next. So I'm actually going to put the face aside and we're going to work on the body. So I hope that this has encouraged you to be excited about making your Oni. And you know, with everything going on in today's world, I was thinking, a lot of the time when I'm creating projects for children, I try to make sure that violence isn't part of the equation. But when it comes to these pretend kind of, you know, bad guys like the Oni, and then we've got Isonboshi, who is the good guy, these good guy, bad guy play periods are actually healthy for children because the world has threatening elements to it. And having a play time where you are playing good guy, bad guy, and you're conquering over the bad guy actually develops a sense of confidence in our children. So violence is not preferred, but having a little bit of pretend battle and combat isn't bad at all. In fact, it's quite fun. Well, we will see you next time where we will work on the body. I'm looking forward to it. I'll see you then. Bye.